Hello, and welcome to the launch of Oaklandside 510. I'm Tasneem Raja, editor-in-chief of the Oaklandside, and we are thrilled that you have joined us. I'm here with Darwin BondGraham, our senior editor. Hey, Darwin.
Hey.
So each week on the 510, we're going to catch you up on the biggest news, plus take a deep dive behind the headlines.
Today, our City Hall reporters Wolfe and Natalie Orenstein are actually going to talk about Trump's mega bill.
Some would argue this is the first major test of Mayor Lee's leadership here in Oakland. So we're going to get into how she's handling it and what it might mean for Oakland's ability to provide services for its most vulnerable residents. That's coming up after the headlines. Hey, Darwin, let's run through some recent Oaklandside headlines. Federal oversight drags on as Oakland police struggle with internal investigations.
Yeah, this is about the Oakland Police Department's 22-year journey trying to get out from under federal court oversight. The whole thing started back in 2000 with the Riders scandal, when Oakland police officers were accused of beating residents and planting evidence on them. The department was actually close to getting out of federal court oversight in 2022, but then problems emerged with how the department handles internal investigations. Now, a judge says they're not meeting 3 key requirements, all related to how the department investigates officer misconduct and disciplines police officers.
By the way, if you're interested in learning more about the Riders case, I recommend you check out Darwin's book. It came out a couple of years ago. It's called Riders Come Out at Night. It's the definitive investigative reporting on this issue, available at lots of Oakland bookstores. All right, here's another story we recently published. Oakland cuts the city's top arts and culture role.
Yeah, the city has had to make a lot of really tough cuts to balance the budget. The cultural affairs manager is a position in the city. This person is responsible for bringing in outside money from foundations, about $1 million annually. And they give this money out to nonprofits and artists who are working within the city. Currently, the city only dedicates about 1% of its budget to cultural affairs. So that extra money from the outside is really crucial to local artists and culture organizations. The fact that this position was cut is something that's really upset artists.
Yeah, glad we're covering that. Okay, one more. Here's the headline. Oakland wants to grow its police surveillance camera network. That sounds ominous. What's that about?
So Oakland, people probably know, recently put in about 300 automated license plate readers around the city over the last year or so. And the police department has proposed hooking up businesses' private security cameras into that feed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So right now, if there's a crime, cops have to go ask merchants for the footage so that they can look at it. The new system would let them just tap into that footage directly.
So I'm sure local privacy advocates have a lot to say about this.
Yeah, they seem really worried. They say this could be a way for ICE or investigators in states that have anti-abortion laws to get access to the footage, even though OPD says this is something their policy prohibits.
Okay, thanks so much, Darwin. Coming up, what Mayor Lee is doing to shield Oakland from President Donald Trump's big budget bill. So recently, President Trump signed into law what he calls the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a massive piece of legislation that cuts hundreds of billions from social services while extending trillions in tax cuts for the very wealthy. Oakland officials immediately condemned the cuts it's going to make to Medicaid and food stamps, saying they're going to be devastating for Oakland residents. But we couldn't help but notice there was one Oakland official who was curiously quiet on this issue, Mayor Barbara Lee. Then, after several days of silence, Lee made her first public comments on the bill to us, the Oaklandside. To help us understand what happened here, what it all means, we're joined by Oaklandside reporters Wolfe and Natalie Orenstein. Eli, let's start with you. What exactly is in this bill and how will it impact Oakland?
Yeah, so this is a huge spending bill. There are $4.5 trillion in tax cuts in it. It's going to add $350 billion for defense and border security. It will massively expand the country's deficit. As you mentioned before, there are also cuts to Medicaid, nearly $1 trillion worth over 10 years. That is going to affect coverage for roughly 500,000 people in Alameda County. It also cuts Medicaid funding to Planned Parenthood, although I should note that a federal judge has temporarily blocked this, so it remains to be seen how that plays out. By one estimate from our local Congresswoman, Latifah Simon, 40,000 people could lose health care in her district, which includes Oakland. Another 16,000 people could lose food support because, as you also mentioned, this is going to affect food programs like SNAP. About 10% of Alameda County residents depend on CalFresh. I should also note that most of these impacts won't be overnight. Some provisions are set to go into effect after next year's midterm elections, but they are definitely coming.
Yeah, it's a big national piece of legislation that is going to have big impacts here in our own backyard.
Absolutely.
So what did Oakland officials have to say about it?
Yeah, there was immediate condemnation from several of Oakland's top-ranking elected officials, including Latifah Simon, our congressional representative, Supervisor Nikki Fortunato-Bass, and Assemblymember Mia Bonta. Simon was posting live updates from Capitol Hill. She was keeping her constituents informed about the bill's progress, basically minute by minute. Bonta called it devastating. Bass called it a catastrophic assault on working class people. As you also noted, Lee was absent from this chorus of voices, and she didn't actually respond to us when we reached out to her for nearly a week.
So, Darwin, you edited this story. Why did it feel important for us to point out to readers that Mayor Lee hadn't been answering our questions on how she felt about this bill? Why should she have to weigh in?
No one around here needs to be told Barbara Lee's history. As a member of Congress, she was one of the banner carriers for progressive Democrats. Famously, she took that moral stance against the U.S. war and invasion of Afghanistan, the U.S. war in Iraq. If you're a leader of Oakland, whether you're in Congress or in the mayor's office, Oaklanders kind of expect their mayor to take these moral positions on issues that are going to affect millions of Americans.
Okay, so Natalie, you keep getting in touch with Barbara Lee's office. What did they finally say when they did respond?
Yeah, she sent us a pretty lengthy response eventually and had some harsh words about the bill, which she called cruel policy disguised as fiscal reform. She also pushed back against this idea that she's been missing in action. She said her job is not just to comment, it's to lead with solutions. And she kind of defended her silence by saying, we have been doing the work. She said she's been coordinating with county and state officials, community organizations, and mayors from other cities, too, on a kind of unified response here. She didn't include a ton of specifics, I'll say, but she did say the effort right now is around identifying exactly what holes are created by this bill. She particularly name-checked Measure W, which is a big county tax measure that's about to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars. And Mayor Lee said those resources can help fill the needs that the big, beautiful bill creates.
So I want to know what all of you think this might tell us, if anything, about Lee's leadership style as mayor. How does it compare to what voters thought they were getting?
She has spoken out on other Trump policies since becoming mayor. She spoke at a big protest and vigil against ICE raids in Fruitvale. She sent a statement out about cuts to U.S. aid. This relative silence could signify a more behind-the-scenes approach she may be moving towards. It's also worth noting another dynamic. We know Trump has a history of taking punitive measures. He's threatened many times, both in his first and second term, to withhold funding from sanctuary cities. I think a wise local official would be wondering if really pushing back would put more of a target on Oakland's back.
Yeah, fair point. Eli, Natalie, what are you guys watching out for as Lee gets settled into her third, fourth months as mayor?
Yeah, so her first 100 days come up at the end of August, and she has a 10-point plan that she presented shortly after being sworn in. Some of it's pretty realistic, like just meeting with community leaders to talk about big public issues like how to improve public safety. Other stuff is a little more nebulous and will probably take more time. The other thing we're going to be looking at is how the city is settling after the budget was passed. That penciled out a $265 million projected deficit for the city. Nobody's happy with the budget, but it could have been a lot worse, and we're not hearing a ton of rumblings around it. But that's going to change as the city continues to spend money and deal with these structural issues, which are not going to be fixed overnight.
Yeah, and I think more broadly, she is going to have to navigate during a term that's about half the length of the typical mayoral term, a bunch of these thorny political issues and friction points. One that I'm particularly paying attention to is how she'll approach homelessness. A recent Supreme Court decision gives cities the authority to clear more homeless camps in more circumstances than they were allowed to previously. And it pretty much remains to be seen whether Lee and the current city council will embrace that authority.
Yeah. In the election, how many times did we hear the phrase like Barbara Lee, progressive icon, right? And it's going to be, I think, very interesting to see, is she able to come out of these 2 years with that reputation as a progressive leader intact?
Can I add one more thing?
Please.
We're also going to be watching to see if she decides to run again. She has filed papers to run in 2026. She hasn't said whether or not she's actually going to do that, but that will tell us a lot about her longer-term plans for the city.
All right, wow. Thank you guys for this reporting. We're going to continue following these stories as they develop. You can find all of these stories at oaklandside.org. And if you want to get this news in your inbox every day, check out our website to sign up for our newsletters. All right, to close out the show today, we're going to hear from you, members of the Oaklandside audience. Last month, we asked our readers about their third place. That's a term that sociologists give to any social space that's not our home or our workplace. It's a place you can relax, be with your friends, get some spiritual renewal. We got over 150 responses. Thank you so much. Please keep them coming. Here are a few.
My third space is a sexy old factory near the Fruitvale BART station. I'm Kim Cardoso, and I've been painting at the Norton Factory Studios for 2 years. When I enter the building, I'm in a place that I have chosen just for me. It's a place that's not my day job or my home, which I love. It's an inspiring, comfortable space where I can reflect and transform.
My name is Carlson Motivar. I'm an East Oakland resident, and my third place is Jack London. I think Jack London is one of the most beautiful spots we have here in Oakland. We have a ton of breweries, and we can't forget Hescher's Pizza. If you like metal, that's the place to be at. There's not a lot of foot traffic, there's ample parking, and I think that's why I like it, because I feel like I'm right at home.
My name is Christopher Maeda, and Mission Control is my third space in Oakland. I especially like to go to events that are POC-led or POC only, because you can let down your guard and not feel objectified, and there is a baseline understanding where we can express ourselves fully.
Hello, my name is Shimona, and I live in and love Oakland. One of my favorite third spaces here is the Panther Skate Plaza at DeFremery Park. It is such a beautiful and joyful event that comes together every single week, and I'm so grateful to be able to share that space with all the incredible people that come out, dance to the great tunes, see the amazing skills, and just be in my body and let go of whatever is stressing me out that day.
This is Susan Gill, and for 30 years, I have lived a block from Lake Merritt and Lakeside Park, close enough that I think of this place as my front yard. When I was a young working mom, I got up at 4 a.m. and ran the lake every morning with my trusty dog, Dakota. Now, in my 70s, I have decreed that when I die, my family endow a bench that reads, "In memory of Susan and Dakota, who loved the lake."
All right, that is our first show. Thank you for listening. Oaklandside 510 is an experiment, something we're trying out here at the Oaklandside. We're planning for this to be a 10-episode series for now, but if you love it, we would love to do more. We'll be reaching out at the end of this pilot run about ways that you can help us keep it going. By the way, if your organization would like to sponsor some episodes, we would love to talk. That email address is editors@oaklandside.org. And of course, we want to hear what you think. Did you love this first episode? Do you have ideas for making it even better? Please share your thoughts. Our email, again, is editors@oaklandside.org. Thank you so much to our reporters, Natalie Orenstein and Eli Wolfe. Thank you to our news editor, Darwin BondGraham. Thank you to our audience and everyone who shared stories about their third place. This show was produced and engineered by Charlie Mintz. Esther Kaplan was the show's editor. I'm editor-in-chief Tasneem Raja. See you next week.